Hey everyone, welcome to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host, Eric Oberembt. This is the podcast where the only requirement to be a guest is that you are being authentic to who you are. If you're not, I'll shut it down and I'll ask you to leave. Remember, be authentic or get the fuck out. Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I am your host, Eric Oberembt. Today, we have the honor and privilege of introducing my friend, Reggie Brock. Reggie, thank you for being here today.
Good to be here, buddy. Always good to hang out with you.
And what's really exciting is I got to take you on a first.
Yes.
Reggie got to do his first commercial roof inspection today.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Well, that little ladder going up to the top was a tad bit
a little straight
unnerving.
ladder.
But,
right.
you know, once I got past that, I learned a whole lot. And I saw what you guys do. And, you know, I'm more of a residential guy. And so it was a good experience for me and kind of seeing how all that's built and what you're looking for in terms of really to helping the customer. So it was real good and fun.
Yeah. Usually those ladders have a wall. So those straight ladders like that, they usually put them up against a wall, which doesn't really change anything, but it's a little more unnerving when they're just in the middle of a room, right? Like just a suspended straight ladder.
My big feet probably, I mean, how do you get your feet all the way in?
Was crazy.
It's my first and maybe one of my last.
Probably. Yeah,
maybe.
That's okay. But at least, and we have it very well documented.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a very well
Nobody
documented.
will believe it.
No, I mean, they'll have to now because we're going to run it as B-roll when this starts. So they're going to get you walking up the ladder. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. So, all right. So thank you for being here today. Sure. I start the podcast off every time with a couple of the same questions. And you know what? Before we even get into that, one thing that I will say to the audience again, and we talked about this last podcast with Phil, is we don't have an agenda here. I've got no notes. I've got two things written down on my notepad. I usually use this just to write down notes as we're talking. So when you say something that's extremely insightful, which is kind of what you do, I'll write it down so I can remember to come back to it. But there's no agenda. There's no outline. This is 100% authentic, natural, whatever kind of comes up. But before we get into the questions and stuff for the people watching, for the people that don't know who you are, do you want to give a little 5-minute ditty on, who is Reggie Brock?
If it took 5 minutes, I would get bored of my own story. So primarily, I spent from a job standpoint, a career standpoint, I spent 25 years in the insurance business. Before that, I actually went to Bible college and left there and went into the ministry, married, and didn't work out real well. And you spending some time with me, you can probably understand that. And any of you who know me can probably get it. But we lasted for 5 years and just didn't work out. Well, in my career at that point, the church that I was with, if you got divorced, you just needed to find a new career. And for me, it was insurance. I got into it pretty easily. I could make good money pretty quickly. Sound familiar? I mean, kind of like roofing. And so I did that for 25 years. And I did everything from, selling individual insurance to working with MRPs. So really widespread of different, experiences for me. And in 2010, I decided I'd had enough really, and had a lot of breakdowns financially. I made some huge bad decisions that affected my wife and son, and I was just kind of at rock bottom. And so I'm like, we lost everything. And so I'm like, I got no idea what to do. And so my wife of 32 years now suggested that we, again, a surprising development for most of you who know me being married to the same woman that long, but she hung in there. And, we picked up, moved to Texas, and my nephew came to me and said, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, I got no clue. He said, "Why don't you try roofing?" And I said, "It's bad, but it ain't that bad yet." And he said, "Just look at this money these guys are making."
Yeah.
And so I actually went to work for a buddy of mine still, Brandon Smythe, who works for Ken Elliott, who owns Ken Elliott Roofing in Texas and the DFW area. And I just literally started going out knocking doors, all residential, getting up on roofs I didn't belong on, meeting adjusters. And because of my background in insurance, I really understood once I got off the roof what to do.
Right.
And so I would kind of walk homeowners through that, which they weren't used to. Most roofers were coming in free inspection and just get the paperwork, write me a check, and get down the road.
Right.
I just really was able to do some different things to create some depth in the relationship with the homeowner. And so that worked out real well for me. And then I ended up at a managed repair company and learned a whole lot about the other side of the business. Mm-hmm. And formed my own opinion, stayed there about 3 years, left, and ended up working with Beacon, which I am where I'm at now. So I have a really wide background in a lot of different areas. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I'm a mile wide and about an inch deep. So
I want to know, what's the church that kicks you out if you get divorced that you were in?
So, my family is still in that church. So
okay.
I'm,
well, they know it.
Yeah. That's true. So when I say they kicked me out, I couldn't keep credentials. So I could still go to churches, but I just couldn't be licensed with them. Right. And so, to pastor a church or to do a lot of different things in that organization and other ones, I'll just say this, it was a Pentecostal background.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And so, I say
gotcha like I know what the fuck that means. But I'm just going to pretend like I do. But let's just continue.
Yeah. And okay. And so that was kind of the deal. It's like gotcha. That way they were built, just being divorced didn't lend itself successfully really to leadership. I understand that.
Yeah.
In a pastoral role.
Yeah. I always get very interested in different religion, churches, things like that. It always kind of, it interests me, right? Because there's so many. And they all have so many different. That's true. They have so many different rules and, you know what I mean, different things. And so when I get to meet with somebody that has that background in different, whatevers, right? Like, because I have these conversations with Sam, with Taggart and with, just different people that have different backgrounds and different faiths and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's always interesting to hear a little bit of insight, especially a lot of the people that were maybe in something for a very long time and then had a day where they're like, maybe something else. Yeah. And I love hearing those stories about, you know what I mean? Like how they had that day where it was like, maybe it's something else for me. Yeah. And I grew up, my dad was a pastor. Right. He's 87 years old. Yeah. And so I was raised in that environment and I don't have a cross thing to say about them other than I had that day where I woke up and I'm like, hold on a minute. Maybe things are a little bit different than I have grown up believing them to be. And it's not really as much fundamental stuff as really the application side of things. Right. I just felt like that there were some things that I'd thought about my whole life and it reached an apex where I had to leave. And then it gave me more room to breathe in my own head about how does this work? And rather than being resentful about it, I just decided, hey, it's time to move on. Yeah. I've still got great friends. My family's still in that church. But for me, it was time for a change. Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. Like I said, that kind of stuff intrigues me. Yeah. You know what I mean? I could do a whole fucking show on that. We're not going to do that today, but it just, that kind of stuff just really interests me just because there's so much, of it. So anyway, okay. Thank you for giving the bio. Yeah. That was more than 5 minutes because you were worth way more than 5 minutes, Reggie. But here's what I like to ask everybody that comes. And you're busy. You've got a ton of shit going on. You travel, you work, you got everything going on. What I always like to ask people when they first come in is, why now? Why would you, other than the fact that you had a meeting, but let's pretend that you didn't, right? But why now? Why do you think that it was important to come in and sit down and take the time to talk to me about authenticity and in that regard, what does it mean to you or how do you think it's changed? Yeah. So I think the whole concept is so relevant for today. Right. And, being able to help people get to that place is an objective of mine in life. Right. Because I think that most people find it really hard to be authentic because of a couple of things. Number one, fear of acceptance, I think, is the big deal. Do you think they know what it means to be authentic? I don't know. I think that's a good question. To me, being authentic is just
really being able to square up with the real person that I am and living it every day. I tell guys this all the time. One of my hopes and objectives in any interaction I have is to drive you back to your original design, what you were made to be, and just live that out. And that to me is being authentic. Because I'm not going to say we, me. I've spent years performing in a task or in ways that I knew would draw me approval and applause in some times and give me validation.
Yep.
And so for me, over the last 3 to 5 years, and I was here several months back, and you and I sat down at dinner and spent the day golfing together, and that really started coming out of me again.
It was a pretty cool day.
It was a great day. We didn't know each other from Adam, right? And it was just really opening up and being vulnerable enough to say, dude, here's what I've fought with. Here's what I've struggled with.
Yeah.
And here's how I've overcome.
Yeah.
And so to me, when you perform so much, you forget who you are. When you're looking and people are wanting you to become something and you've not really willing to accept who you were meant to be and just live in that, you go down paths you don't belong. And that's what I did. I just, I started acting. I'd failed. I was disappointed. I had, I'd been hurt. I had been damaged by others, and I had damaged other people. And so you start just layering your life, and then eventually you wake up one day and go like, who am I?
Right.
And so the interesting thing to me is the realization that you've had, and I know I've had, to where we're going like, you know what? I am tired of putting on.
Yeah.
I don't, either you're going to like me or you're not going to like me. And honestly, it doesn't matter to me, because what I found is when I live me, there is an attraction power that comes with me that reaches out to the universe or whatever you want to call it, that draws things that belong to me. Eric, I'm tired of being a part of stuff that I have no business being a part of. And I don't even mean bad stuff. I mean just stuff that I have people, like I use an example, it's probably a poor one. My wife will see this, and I hope she laughs at least one more time. My first wife, we married, and 5 years, we lasted 5 years. And I honestly believe some of the unwinding in our marriage was due to me deciding early I was going to figure out what she wanted and become that. And it was not who I was. I've done that in jobs.
Yeah.
I would go in and I knew what you were looking for, and I would paint the picture. And you were interested in me. She was interested in me. And all it had left for me to do is close the deal. And so I was looking at it as a manipulation that drew me away from who I really was, knowing that one day all this stuff I was hiding was going to pop out.
Right.
And that's what people don't get. They think they can just carry this nonsense on forever, but eventually who you aren't is revealed. Did you hear what I said? Who you aren't.
Right.
And so she got into this about 3 months into this and goes like, what is this?
Right.
And so all of the put on was gone, and she was left with me, and I was left with her. And so I think you can carry that to any area of your life. You start putting on and trying to perform and want people to kind of see and approve you and say, oh, what? And then you still lay down at night and go like this. Why in the world is everybody accepting me and I still feel so empty? It's because you're not who you was designed to be, and you're not living in that.
I think that, man, there's so much good stuff there to unpack. The funniest one was funny to me was that I think when we're young, especially as men, man, we all fucking do that, right? We all try to figure out how to conform to make that woman or that whoever, like, you know what I mean? Like that's such a real thing that I've never really thought about, but it's so obvious. I mean, especially in our teens, 20s,
right? You
know what I mean? Like we're all just dumb trying to find somewhere to put it. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, that was crude, but but I mean, that's what we're trying.
There's nobody on this watching this that's going to be shocked.
Right. Yeah. Good point. But absolute fact. That's hilarious.
You're searching for significance. You're trying to find yourself.
Right.
And you can't just say to yourself, I'm just going to roll along life when you've got all these peer groups and, all these jobs you're trying to get and all these relationships you're trying to find. We spend too much time trying to figure out what they're thinking that we need to be to become it.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you wake up one day and all this stuff that we aren't pops up ruins relationships, ruins jobs, and we wonder like, what happened? What happened was you lost you.
Yeah.
And if I can get people and you can get people to return to that, who I am, who I'm built to be, and develop that, my God, the influence and the opportunity we have to affect others immensely grows.
And that changes so much over the years too, right? Like that changes so much because I didn't know who the fuck I was when I was 23. No. You know what I mean? Or whatever. I mean, hopefully the idea would be that you're trying to be who you are at 23. But I mean, looking back, I think that, there is a significance to time, right? To being able to figure that out, right? Now, that being said, I laid the same path of destruction, that you talked about, as well, which I mean, if I could take that back, obviously you'd like to take some of that, hurt back or whatever, but it also goes back to whenever I'm talking about, our recovery story, my recovery story too, I wouldn't be what I am today without all of the bullshit that I did. You know what I mean? I'd probably just be existing and I'd be that same kind of boring, getting through life guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? That everybody knows 100 of them. Right. And I think that you get the opportunity to be extraordinary when you recover from the pits of hell. Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, it just seems like to me, those are the most interesting people. To me, those are the most interesting people. I am very bored by, I fucking had a very nice childhood and I went to college and my parents paid for it and I did this and I did this and now I've got a good job and I make $75,000 a year. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I want to hear your story and Phil's story and Paul's story. And you know what I mean? I want to hear those stories.
This might not be for you, but it is for me. There's a part of me that those guys that had easy upbringings. Yeah. I mean, some of that I covet, where I'm just saying, because I've had so many bounces in my life.
100%.
To where you go like, dude, if I could have just had 3 years of just calm, easy, peaceful, kind of lazy river life, I would have liked that. But to your point, I wouldn't be who I was today without all of that.
And you don't get to just check in and say, can I have a couple of years?
Give me a couple of years. No, that's not the way this works.
Not the way it works.
No.
We got to be the pieces of shit for a little while.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, somebody's got to do it so we can end up where we are.
Well, right? I contributed.
Yeah, we all did. That's why we're friends.
True. Yeah. And I mean, I think the fact of the matter is there are more and more people out there like you and I who have failed, made great mistakes, and have pushed it down so deep because they just don't want anybody to know. So back to your question, where we find freedom, I think, is when we allow ourselves to just accept every step of our life, not just parts of them that please everybody, and are able to share that with others to help them find a way out. Yep. And realize if he can do it with what I've been through, what you've been through, there's hope for me. Yeah. And I read this quote by, her name is Anne Lamont, and it was a real interesting quote. She said, I am here to become me. Watch this. She said, but it has taken quite longer than I'd hoped. Right? That's a great quote. Yeah. I'm like, again, it goes back to my point. We push down who we are in lieu of finding somebody else's approval, and we just don't become everything we could be because we just don't think everybody's going to accept us the way we are. And the fact is, that's counter opposite of the truth.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And so,
because I think about it this way, when I was starting this podcast, I had to sit down and ask myself how I was actually going to run it and how I was going to be, because I had to figure out who was going to watch. Right. And I've got clients watching this or potential clients watching this as well. And I had to make a decision. Am I going to cater to making sure that I don't rock the boat with a potential client? Or am I going to be honest and tell the truth, be who I am, maybe say a couple naughty words once in a while? And I decided exactly what you said earlier, that I'm going to be exactly who I am. I'm going to say exactly what I want, because that's going to attract the person that I want to work with. So if you're watching this and you don't like what we're talking about,
move on.
Right. Like there's somebody else that will, but every time I get around people that share the same mentality, values, whatever you want to call it, right? And I think people probably get confused watching me and talking to me too, because I'll say I live by a set of morals, values, whatever. And then they hear me, curse and scream and fucking yell for 5 minutes. And they're like, wait, which one is it?
Right.
I get to be both, because I've decided that I get to be both, right? I get to be Eric, and I get to be the guy that says things that maybe offend people. But I don't say them to offend you. Oh shit. That was something that I wrote down the other day. That I'd love to dig into a little bit.
Before you go to that, so here's what I think. I think that our influence has limits.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is not everybody's going to attach to your message or mine.
No.
And so we have to be good with that. The problem with social media, to me, is it's made rock stars out of a bunch of people who
should not be rock stars,
or there aren't, right?
Right, yeah.
And so we all do social media and all that kind of stuff. But what I became comfortable with the notion of this message it will have a limited audience.
Yeah.
It's people, and I think the reality of it is people who are courageous and honest with themselves.
Right.
I hear this all the time. Quit lying to yourself. I don't think that's possible. I think we have convinced ourselves a long time ago that we are something that we're not. And so we've stopped lying to ourselves. We just absorbed in the notion of something we started believing 10 years ago. And so what I mean by that is this. When you are by yourself, these lights are off, the camera's off, your wife and daughter are not around, and it's just you.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how many positive messages you say to yourself, you know who you are.
Right.
And you know what you're facing, and you know the deficits are there. You hear the internal dialogue just like I do. And so I don't think we lie to ourselves. I just think that we push it off. And so my hope is that whoever I speak to in some fashion or order, there's going to be a small group of guys out there and go, oh, God, that's where I'm at. That's what I've difficulty finding. And if that dude can get out of it, so can I.
Right.
And I think our audience shrinks, even though social media tells us we can reach the world. I mean, there's some guys that do. But for me, it's just going to be there's a select group of people because
but
my
I think
life's
that
built
select
like
group
that.
of people is going to be larger than what you think.
Well, and maybe.
Right? Like, I think that, because it goes back to thinking we're unique, right? I think that everything that we're talking about here is going to reach, it is going to not reach a certain group, but I think that the group that it is reaching is significantly larger than you anticipate.
And let's be happy with that.
100%. Yeah. Who wouldn't be?
Yeah. And so the word that I keeps coming back to me is a word study I have called the word metron, M-E-T-R-O-N. Metron means this. It's your center of influence allowable, right? So what that means to me is I'm not the guy that changes the world, just mine.
Sure.
Right. And wherever I'm led to and wherever opportunities come, there's where I have to seize the moment.
Yeah.
Worrying about being some household name in our industry, first of all, it's never going to happen.
Right.
And secondly, it frustrates me. I mean, I spent time looking at people's podcasts and listening to good friends of mine now, not you included, good friends of mine now, and I don't mean you're not a good friend. I just meant I didn't include you in that list.
Yeah, fuck. What did you mean?
Well,
let's go.
Sorry, that was kind of
maybe we should break that down. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for being here, Reggie.
Where's my button where I close the fucking show off? Okay.
He's out. I mean, buddies of mine that would get up on platforms and stages and, that I wasn't invited to. And I would go like, they suck and I'm good and nobody knows it. Well, the fact of the matter was that was where they belonged. I didn't at the point in time. And so if we can really focus our attention in on what's ours to really operate in by being ourselves, we're going to be a lot happier.
Yeah. And I really hope that, to your point, I really hope that people watching this do understand that is not the intention of this.
Yeah, right.
Right? I mean, I hope that they get it. Like, I know that my guests get it, right? I think that you do.
Yeah.
I know that Paul did. You know what I mean? I know that Phil did. But I'm not doing this to monetize. Although, back to that point, if you'd like to sponsor, I'll take your sponsorship. But I'm not doing this to monetize. I'm not doing this to whatever. I didn't have anybody to look at when I was kind of coming through that dark whatever and that dark period. I didn't have anybody to look up to. Being in recovery, you find sponsors and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't have anybody And shit, I don't even know if they had fucking podcasts or, whatever back then. I think Google was just fucking coming around. I hope that, to your point, I always say if I'm on stage talking about recovery, and the same thing here about being authentic and being who you are, is if there's like one person watching right now that goes, holy shit. Right. And sends me a message and is like, thanks, man. Like, I'm going to go do this now, or I'm going to go read this, or I'm going to go try this and to be different, than what I've been doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I get energy from.
And that's why I'm here.
Right.
Because I know that's you.
Right.
Right. And it's not like I got 1,000 opportunities to go do podcasts or speak places. But the fact of the matter is every moment in my life counts.
Right.
And when I'm here, I could be somewhere else. But this is priority to me because I really think that what you're talking about, you're living.
Yeah.
And so it encourages people. It brings hope to me. And to be able to go like, you know what? We don't have everything figured out. Yeah. But what I do know is I'm going comfortably accept who I am, and I'm going to run in that lane, and I'm going to let life happen the way it should, as opposed to the made up stuff I've been a part of for so long. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I love having conversations with Reggie. I really do. At a meeting we were at the other day, NDA, I love hearing you go with a group.
Now, my wife calls it rambling. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I can see that, how somebody would. I would see how a loved one could say that, because like my wife doesn't want to fucking hear a thing I have to say, right? Like We've got all these people watching and they're like, well, he's great. And like she goes to the gym and like one of her friends is like, well, I watched the podcast and it was fantastic and da 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 da. Right. And I know she goes home, she's like, fuck, I hear him talk all goddamn day and I'm just over it. Like, could he just shut the fuck up for 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Which I do when I go home. Yeah. So I'm quiet. So what else is going on in your life?
It's career, with my career, it's a challenge, as you know.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And for me right now, what I'm interested in is seeing whatever influence and abilities I have affecting people and helping them grow and become and to reach not really potential, but their potency.
Yeah.
So that word potency means this. It's the ability to create. And so I think that the further we get away from who we are, the less likely we are to have creative thought and action. Mm-hmm. So if I'm trying to be you, I lose what I can do because of the way I'm built to affect somebody who needs it. And that's why when I do stuff like you, and listen, we all imitate. We all try to look at guys and go like, man, I would love to be able to do that. And there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. But when it becomes the sole reason we exist and we lose our ability to connect with people because of who we are, and that's the last thing I'll say about this. Look, I'm finding connection with people now, like you, that I think is a direct proportion to me scaling everything that I'm not out of my life and it causing connections.
Yeah.
And if someone's watching this podcast and they're having trouble connecting with people at more of, an intimate level, so to speak, they might want to look at what they're presenting, right?
Because you can feel that somebody's full of shit. You can absolutely feel that somebody's not fucking being themselves.
Right.
100% every single time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not consciously they can't tell, but they can tell. You know what I mean? Like you can just tell when you're around someone. I can tell in a minute and a half if I want to spend any more time with you.
Right.
You know, right?
Right.
I mean, it's some kind of weird subconscious brain thing. If Clay's watching, you can send me a text message and tell me what it is, because I don't know what it is. But you can feel that. You can absolutely feel that shit. I think that's 100% real.
And I think with you, I think what's interesting in me and maybe some other guys, I think trying to entertain people for me is a mistake.
Yeah.
Even like on a podcast or whatever you're doing, you providing real solutions to problems and opportunities to show people how to bridge out, so to speak, of, some really devastating moments in their lives is not real entertaining.
Right.
Right. Now, hearing about
you said it's not entertaining.
Hearing about your jail burritos was very entertaining. Having Paul on was very entertaining. But I think at the end of the day, now when you get paid on, I don't know that I'm gonna probably have to skip that podcast.
Not gonna watch the paid podcast.
I can't wait. But the fact of the matter is, I think you're doing a great job. I think that being able to really speak into people's life at a different level may not be entertaining, but it's meaningful.
I think that I appreciate what you said about BU, and this is kind of how I'd like to close everything today, because when I did my first speech presentation, whatever you want to call it, and I've talked about it a couple of different times, that this was all kind of birthed with Sam, and then I got to go do an hour on being authentic at D2DCon last year, and he just invited me today to come back and speak again. But one of the largest parts of the speech was to be you. And you go to a D2DCon, right? And there are a lot of different personalities there, right? Because it is a dick measuring contest. There's just a bunch of swinging dicks and with big, stupid fucking hats on and jackets, and got to be fucking loud. And you know what I mean? Like, everything's a goddamn competition, right? And I get it. Like, it's sales, it's D2D, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I understand it. That's the mentality and whatever. But people watch and listen to different shows, hopefully not like this one, right? But they listen to these different shows with a Gary Vee or an Ed Milet or a, whoever it is. And all of these people I love listening to, and I hope to, I think you said it before, emulate, right? But there's so many people out there that are doing the opposite, and they're literally trying to turn into them. Exactly. And trying to recreate them. And what I will tell you from what I've learned, and especially in my business, what I've really noticed is, because I started all this on a micro level in my company, right? Like, I had 15, 18 people that I could affect directly by different ideas and thoughts and, whatever that I could bring to the table. I never had an opportunity to bring value to a group of people, right? I had a micro level of people in my office that I could say, hey, I get to lead them, and I get to maybe show them a better way, right? And then obviously as that grew into this kind of stuff, and I got stage time, whatever, but stop trying to fucking be Gary Vee, right? Stop trying to be Ed. Stop trying to be, I don't even know all the other names, but stop trying to be those people. Learn from those people. Learn from their mistakes, learn from our mistakes, right? So maybe you don't have to recreate those. And then that should hopefully will give you the opportunity to figure out who you are, right? You don't have to know exactly who the fuck you are right now. I don't think. No. Right? You don't have to know, because I didn't know. And we're still growing. Of course. We still don't fucking know. We're going to be different tomorrow than we are today. And a year from now, we're going to be different people than we were. Because if we're not, shit. If we're the exact same person a year from now than what we are today and didn't grow, that's a sad commentary. That's a sad day. So I think I'd like to leave it with, for those that are watching that are maybe in a spot that maybe they don't know who they are. That's fine. But my advice is, don't try to fucking be somebody else. Yeah. And even if you know who you are, it doesn't mean you've arrived. Right. You never arrive. There's that progression. I don't believe, you don't ever arrive. No. So, ever. But it should keep you motivated to progress. Yes. And so hearing shows like this, look, I'm not a counselor. I don't want to be a counselor. No. I'm just an experienced failure. Had a bunch of them. Experienced failure. Right. I like that. And so that's going to be the title write that down, Lexi. That's the title of my next book. Experienced failure. I got a lot of skins on. I got two roofing books. Yeah. But now we're going to experienced failure. Yeah. Bunch of skins on the wall for that title, but for me. But the fact of the matter is, I'm getting better. And what these folks watching this podcast should understand is they can do the same thing. You don't have to be like somebody to get better. No. It's just you take accept it, number one, and then just start building. You can look at you, and you can look at other people, and you can hear these, and you go like, oh, okay, based upon kind of where I am, maybe I can implement this to create some change in my life for the good. And I'm going to quit with this, but let me say this. When I said
I don't think people are really looking to be entertained. What I'm really meant by that is there is so much out there that is built with whistles and bells.
Yeah.
That it just distracts us. And it's like the cat chasing the next shiny object.
Squirrel.
Either way. I don't like either of them, cats or squirrels.
No.
And so
shoot them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Cat season. It's coming up. I'll fucking put a pelt up on the wall.
An experience failure, right?
Yeah, experience failure. I do. I fucking hate cats. There's absolutely no good reason for them to be around.
I didn't really mean to go down that trail.
Yeah, but I will.
I got you. And so I just understand that we have the opportunity to change. Yeah. And so it doesn't have to be entertaining, because sometimes when we talk about deep, dark stuff, it gets uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so you need to understand being uncomfortable is okay. You just got to learn to take where you are and move on.
So this is something that I also forgot to do, was that, and we need to add this, but I had made up a mantra for what this show was going to be. And not a mantra, that's the wrong word. I'm an idiot. But it was going to be called a comfortable place to have uncomfortable conversations.
That's good.
Yeah. A comfortable place to have uncomfortable conversations. So we need to remember to put that in the intro now. But that was always my intention for this, so that we could sit here, not think about the cameras that are up here, right? And have a conversation. If it got uncomfortable, great. Didn't have to be the intention behind it or anything.
The recoveries that you've been through.
Yeah.
You needed two things: safe place and safe people. I mean, you needed more than that.
Yeah.
But being able to share.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To be vulnerable and to get rid of some of this raw in me where I've been hurt. The hardest thing to overcome is trust. To be able to say, okay, if I open up to Eric,
what's he going to do with it?
Right? And so I think one of the things that this podcast does is it creates at least the beginning notion of find somewhere safe.
Yeah.
And find somebody safe that you can start speaking to and start opening yourself up. And I promise I'll shut up with this. My wife used a great example. This is the kind of stuff that matters to me in life. I'm always thinking about how do I live, and because I've made a skill out of hiding things. Mm-hmm. Pushing them down. I don't want anybody, because I'm afraid I'll embarrass her, disappoint her, whatever. And so, this word exposed has become like really important to me. And I told her, I'm like, when you think about living exposed, what does that mean to you? Now, my wife's a pharmacist. She has a medical background, obviously. And she said this: when I think about exposing, like living life exposed, she says, I think of bacteria. I'm like,
wow.
Okay.
Not where I went.
No, not at all. We're thinking about pulling our pants up or something.
Yeah. I was thinking of ass and yeah.
And she goes, I think about, and my wife is without guile, right? And so when she said that, I said, what do you mean? She said, there's some bacteria, listen to this, that live beneath the surface, that the only way they're ever destroyed, killed, or cease to live anymore is when they're exposed to light and oxygen. And I'm like, that's me. I've got stuff deep down in me that has grown because I've been afraid to expose it to life or oxygen. She says, when you lance like a boil or something like that, and it's opened up, the oxygen destroys the bacteria.
Wow, that's a really good analogy.
And so what I'm telling you is this: it is shows like this that are going to give you hopefully courage to open up that wound and let all of those toxins out of your system, because that's where life new begins. Give it oxygen and give it light. And those things that you've battled so long, quit repressing them, push them out, and watch what happens to your life. And with that,
I will have to say, I think that is the perfect way to close this. Yeah. Amazing time. I think that's got to be our most passionate podcast that we've done so far. But I will say, I knew that was going to be the case. So I'm excited. You got to do your first commercial inspect.
There you go.
You're going to, hopefully, I'm going to check my phone in a minute. I'm trying to get Tegan to skip dance.
Yes.
So she can come to have sushi with us tonight. Then we get to have dinner together and you get to hang out with Tegan, which is going to be way more fun than hanging out with me.
As it was with Lexi.
Right.
I enjoyed that more than you.
100%.
So
I don't think anybody really enjoys spending that much time with me. I'm just really good in small doses, which, by the way, you have to feel sorry for Natalie, since we are going to Cayman and have to quarantine for 14 days together.
Poor people.
So, well, it is going to be for 14 days. Yeah. Because if we come back from that still married, I mean, that's a win.
Big win.
I mean, we've been married for I don't know how long, but this will be the test. So if you're watching this, you'll watch this before.
Hey, Natalie, my prayers.
Yeah.
And concern. Go
Thoughts
out
and prayers. Isn't that what everybody says?
I
Thoughts and
guess.
prayers.
Something like that.
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers.
That's what they all say on Facebook, right? Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
So to you, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
And as we end the show every week, Reggie, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And to everybody out there watching, be authentic or get the fuck out.
Just know I'll go again. I never quit, 'cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up. I bet when